Hello and welcome to Let's Have a Go. Thank you for joining me. We have a lot to pack in this episode, so let's dive right in. Let's have a go at leatherwork. I've got a variety of new tools to try out this time, and I found it quite funny actually. Lots of them seem to be much more sharp and pointy. I could deal a bit more damage to myself. So the first of the tools that I used was the pencil, the stitching wheel and the awl. Now I wasn't really sure how to begin. I knew I needed to mark out the holes for the stitching, but I didn't know how to do that, so I got a scrap of leather and I made a start. I found the pencil to be quite good, that worked well. The stitching wheel, that was a bit confusing. The holes didn't actually match up with the irons that I used later on. But the awl was the best. That left the clearest mark for me to be able to line up later on. And so I decided that I was going to use the pencil to mark out and then strengthen that up by using the awl. I first started measuring out the lines that I marked, but then after that I just sort of decided to go freehand and worked out where I needed to mark the line and then used the pencil and awl to put that in place. Now the awl leaves a permanent mark. So after I'd marked everything out, I looked at it and the lines looked like they were a little bit too far in. So at this point, I realised the critical piece of information.
I think it's gone wrong.
But little did I know what I was about to do. Quite clearly, I've had some major issues at this point in the process. So let's unpick what happened. First of all, I used the hammer and also the pricking irons. Okay, so I went outside because I thought that'd be considerate. I live in a flat and know I'm going to do a lot of noise from the hammering and didn't want to wind up the neighbours. So outside, here I was trying to line up, making sure to keep with the lines that I've marked out and just make sure to make this the best I could. I should point out, you shouldn't see metal through the side, that's a problem. And then at this point I realised that because I've made all the leather thicker by gluing it all together, it's actually quite hard to remove the pricking irons once I've made the holes. Also, something else I learned is that while filming outside it's very dependent on the sun, and the sun decided to go in at this point. But I actually kept that in because it kind of really matched up with my feelings to this project. Well, first positive, but then sort of slowly going towards a more negative feeling as this went more and more wrong. I had a decision to make. What do? Do I give up right now? Well, I decided that I was going to fix this. I was going to have a go at fixing it anyway. Not really helped at all, really. So, what do? Do I continue on? Do I give up at this point? That was the decision I had to make. I was a bit disappointed. I will admit that. This is the first strike I'd made and I messed it up. What do? Well, I decided to carry on. I was going to learn the lessons from what I'd done. I'm actually very glad that I continued, because the next holes that I made all the way around the rest of the project, I actually got them mostly right, and it's quite satisfying as you hit the pricking irons and they sink into the leather, and it seemed to just go very smoothly. So I'm very glad that I continued. Next step was stitching, and that had a needle and thread. And I had a variety of colours, but I decided to go for white. It might highlight the problems, but maybe we can learn from that. With the stitching, I wanted to make sure that I didn't run out of thread. That would be a big problem, so I made sure to have as much as possible. And then what you need to do is thread the needle at either end of the thread. And with leather, needle and thread, you need to be able to thread it on and then go back on itself, back through the thread, and create a sort of nifty little loop that holds the needles in place. Now, I should say that I did actually find stitching quite difficult as well. Getting the needle through the leather took a lot of force. Even though I'd already marked out the holes with the pricking irons, it's quite difficult. There are some tools that you can get to hold the pieces in place so that you can stitch a bit more easier. I might look into investing in those, because actually working without that proved to be quite difficult. And you know how earlier I said that everything seemed to be a bit more sharp and pointy, and I could inflict a bit more damage upon myself? Well, that certainly was the case with stitching. The amount of times that I poked myself in the finger, I can realise now why people have thimbles. There was blood shed at this stage. And as I reached the end of the stitching, towards where I'd messed it up, I could start to see what I'd done wrong. I'd gone in a diagonal fashion off the edge of the work, and as I started stitching, this is where the problems came about, because I was stitching out of the leather. So we're going to be able to see a big problem here, and it does look like a dog's dinner. But you know what? Let's continue to learn from that. Then I decided I was going to burn the project. Not really. I used a lighter to be able to seal the ends. And then it's on to burnishing, the last stage. and I used beeswax and a burnisher for this. Now, we covered burnishing a little bit in the last episode, but a little bit more detail this time. With burnishing, what you do is you use friction to be able to mat all the fibres at the edge of the leather together. And that creates a finish, and usually that finish is shiny. You might be able to see it actually as I'm burnishing. You can see it starting to catch the light. Now you can use friction along with things such as a burnishing compound, beeswax, or even water to create that finish. I quite enjoyed burnishing. It did start to come together, and some of the sides, the finish was, well, I thought it looked quite nice and shiny. So yeah, burnishing was good. And that's the end. But I'll leave the reveal for next time. So for now, if you want to see the rest of the project or any future projects, subscribe. And if you liked this video, please leave a like. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time on Let's Have a Go.